Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. You can close your prayer books for a few minutes. So I'll begin with a confession. I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but at least for me, at least twice a week, and often more often than that, when I leave my house in the morning and I'm driving off and I'm about 2 to 3 blocks away, I find myself not able to remember if I closed the garage door. Does this happen to anyone else? So this has been going on with me for years. And inevitably, when I try to remember whether I did, in fact, press the button on the remote in my car or not, I cannot remember for the life of me. So I loop around, drive all the way back to my house, only to discover that literally every single time, yes, I did, in fact, close the garage door. It has never, ever not been closed. It's a joke that my kids mock me with all the time. We have to leave 6 minutes early before we normally would because of how often this occurs. And it's a perfect example of a part of my life that where I live entirely on autopilot. I've left my house so many times that I no longer really experience leaving my house. I pass through that threshold without really noticing that I've crossed it. And because I wasn't present when I crossed it, 2 or 3 blocks later, I have no memory of having done this at all. My mindless habit literally sends me driving in circles. Reflecting on my flaw, one of my many flaws, but this one earlier this week, I wondered what else in my life I moved through this way. How many conversations, how many meals, how many opportunities to stop and pay attention that I overlook or ignore outright? How often do I arrive somewhere without really remembering how I got there? How often do I allow my habits to override my intentions? And as we find ourselves, starting yesterday now, in the month of Elul, the final month of the current Jewish year, and the month which leads us into these high holy days, I'd like to suggest that this very tension between habit and intention sits at the heart of this season, which may be why our tradition pays so much attention to thresholds and gates throughout this time. The first Torah portion in the month of Elul is always Shoftim, famously focused on justice. It opens with the verse, "You shall appoint judges and officers in all of your gates." Now, on a most basic level, the Torah is speaking about the gates of ancient cities, the literal gates of ancient cities. Justice begins at the entrance to communal life. A healthy society depends on people who administer justice fairly, honestly, and without favoritism. But one of the great gifts of Judaism is the multi-layered interpretive tradition that surrounds our approach to how we understand our texts. And it teaches that any message from the Torah has its surface meaning, but it also contains additional layers of understanding. A primary one captured by the Kabbalistic and Hasidic masters who refused to leave Torah only in the world outside of us. They believed that Torah is also a guide for governing our inner lives. Every story becomes my story, your story. Every journey becomes my inner journey, your inner journey. Every commandment becomes an invitation to ask not only what should we build, but who are we becoming? So when they read, "Appoint judges and officers in all your gates," they read it differently. And they wonder, what are the gates within us? Consider that notion of a gate for a moment. What is a gate? It's more than an entrance or an exit. A gate is a place that interrupts movement. It slows us down just long enough to remember where we are, where we're going, and how we want to cross into whatever comes next. A gate is the place where intention can replace habit. To that end, in his masterwork, Mea Shiloach, the Ishbitzer Rebbe, Rabbi Mordechai Yosef Leiner, suggests that the gates mentioned in our portion are in fact our senses, our eyes, our ears, our mouths, the openings through which the world enters us and through which we enter the world. Consider this in a modern context, and we can understand that along these same lines, every headline is a gate. Every notification is a gate. Every conversation, every glance we cast, every word we choose to speak. Something's always entering us. Something's always leaving us. The question isn't whether or not we have gates. The question is whether we ever stop there long enough to notice what's passing through them. Most of the year we live driving on the road. This month of Elul invites us to stand at the gate. The road is where momentum carries us. The gate is where we remember our destination. A different Hasidic Rebbe, Rabbi Shalom Noach Berezovsky, known as the Nitivot Shalom, explains the image even further to include time. He teaches that every day is a gate, every month a gate. But Rosh Hashanah is the greatest gate of them all because it sits at the place between the past, the previous year, and the future, the entirely new year in front of us. I love that image of Rosh Hashanah as a gate because I think it helps us to change how we think of Elul. Elul is not simply a countdown to the High Holy Days. It's not 30 days of feeling guilty before we ask for forgiveness. A gate isn't just about the past. A gate's also about the future. Whenever we stand at an important threshold in life, a graduation, a wedding, the birth of a child, retirement, what have you, we naturally ask questions we rarely ask on ordinary days. Who do I want to be as I enter this next chapter? What do I want to carry with me? What needs to remain behind? That's why Judaism gives us Elul. Not because God needs 30 extra days to prepare judging for us, but because we need 30 days to recover our intentions. For many of us who use this month as a period of cheshbon hanefesh, personal reflection, and soul accounting, our focus is likely centered around our relationships with other people. What kind of spouse am I? Parent, child, sibling, friend, colleague? These are essential questions. But Judaism also insists on a different relationship, one we often neglect because no one else can see it really, the relationship we have with ourselves. Am I honest with myself? Do I know what really motivates me? What habits have quietly taken over my life? What fears shape my reactions? What kind of person am I becoming? This is the work of Elul, interpersonal and intrapersonal, because the quality of our inner life inevitably shapes every other outer relationship we have. So let's go back to the Torah portion's directive with this framing in mind: appoint judges at your gates. Not because Judaism wants us to become harsher towards ourselves. Most of us already have an inner critic. That isn't the judge the Torah envisions. The reserve of a true judge is not condemnation, but rather discernment. Someone who sees clearly. Someone who distinguishes truth from impulse, intention from habit, wisdom from reaction. The work of Elul is not self-condemnation, it's self-honesty. It's the willingness to pause at the gate long enough to ask, is the person who keeps showing up every day the person I actually intend to become? Interpersonal ethics, kindness, inclusion, communication, and public ethics, justice, democracy, civic responsibility, these things, they matter. And our tradition would argue that if we are interested in making these things manifest, then the necessary precept is a focus on intrapersonal ethics, the moral responsibility we bear toward our own inner life. And Elul is Judaism's reminder that tending the soul is not self-indulgence. It is, in fact, a religious obligation. We cannot consistently bring wisdom, patience, courage, or compassion into the world if we have not cultivated these qualities in ourselves. Which reveals the real truth, for me at least, that the garage door is really not the issue. The issue is that I pass through a gate on autopilot. I cross a threshold without noticing that I cross it. And Elul invites us to notice the thresholds of our lives once again, because a gate is the place where intention replaces habit. Guess what, friends? 4 weeks from tonight, our people will gather over there, maybe around there, hear the shofar, stand before an open ark, and pray that the gates of heaven are open for us. But perhaps the first gates we are meant to open are much closer than heaven. The gates of our attention, the gates of our speech, the gates of our hearts, the gate that is this season itself. To stop long enough to remember where we are, to remember where we're going, and to choose intentionally how we want to enter the new year ahead. May this month be that sacred pause, that sacred gate for each of us. May it be the gate through which habit gives way to intention, distraction gives way to awareness, and routine gives way to renewal. And may that crossing prepare us all to enter the high holy days and the new year with more open hearts and more open souls into a world that's never been better. Shabbat Shalom.